Welcome back. As you've seen, certainly for the last 3 weeks and also throughout the course of this hour, the human cost of Sandy is readily apparent, and so obviously is the physical damage. But what about the economic impact? Moody's estimates that Sandy, it will be the third most costly natural disaster in American history, trailing only Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Andrew. And economists say the impact of Sandy might be even bigger than expected. In fact, the storm, it boosted first-time unemployment benefit claims this month. However, some say post-Sandy reconstruction could actually end up being a boon for the economy. Our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, he spoke with David Callahan about the issue earlier this week. Now, David, he's the editor of PolicyShop.net and the co-founder of Demos, a public policy think tank. He's also the author of 8 books and has written extensively on politics, the social safety net, as well as globalization.
David, is it still too early, too soon to know what the economic impact of Sandy is and has been?
Economists are already saying that this is going to whack maybe a ½ percentage point off of GDP for the fourth quarter. So there's certainly a near-term hit here. Longer term, there'll be economic activity and growth from all that rebuilding, so some of the losses in this quarter will be made up for. Still, none of that really gets to the losses at the micro level, the individual business owner who has gotten wiped out or homeowners who've gotten wiped out.
You mentioned the potential benefits from the rebuilding. Obviously, that sort of thing would act as a stimulus. Is there any way to get a sense of what kind of impact that might have in offsetting those losses?
There's going to be a lot of rebuilding, a lot of jobs created by rebuilding infrastructure, rebuilding homes. Should be a pretty big stimulus, especially in New Jersey. New Jersey has a very high unemployment right now, 9.8% before the storm. A lot of the people out of work are construction workers, so this should be good for them looking ahead in the months to come.
From your perspective, is there a sense that the government's response to Sandy has been adequate, could have been better, could have been worse? What's your take?
I think it's fair to say that the government at all levels has been pretty overwhelmed by the scope of this storm, the biggest since Katrina. Lots of complaints out there about FEMA. FEMA says it's already, shelled out over $500 million in claims in New York alone. But a lot of people are getting some pretty small checks from FEMA that don't even come close to covering their losses. Meanwhile, out there in Coney Island, the Far Rockaways, lots of complaints about how the New York City Housing Authority dropped the ball. So, many complaints about government in this disaster.
David, one of the positive signs that we've seen throughout all this is a refocus on government as being a force for good, as it's gone through and tried to either prepare people for the storm or help people recover from the storm. Any chance you think that leads to a change in perspective on how the average voter views government, whether it might encourage them to look at it as more of a force for good?
Well, I do think that these kind of moments of emergency can remind people of how government is there for us when we need it. One of the things that you're seeing government do is really act as a sort of an insurance agent, right? I mean, FEMA is there. Maybe those checks aren't big enough, but it's better than nothing for people. And so all of us, through our tax dollars, are supporting FEMA and helping out our fellow citizens, and that is really what government does best, which is sort of pool our collective resources so that we can help citizens when they're in need, even without any kind of individual activity. You don't have to go out to the Rockaways or Coney Island to be doing something, because you're doing something through those tax dollars which are supporting FEMA and other kinds of government aid.
More RFL when we return.